All right, everybody, welcome to CyberBulls. So this week was actually pretty exciting. There's some big news that came out that I think could be the turning point. You tell me, but I think most of us bulls here think that what happened on Sunday when we had Adam Jonas, Morgan Stanley, come out with a new price target for Tesla. There's a potential UAW strike that could happen late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And then we started to hear that Gen 3 could actually already started. The new platform could already be happening at Giga Texas. We all thought that Giga Mexico was being delayed. So we have the bulls with us. We have Alexandra Mertz, Christian Valente, Jeff Lutz, and Xander Sky. Welcome, everybody. Let's get started with the Jonas upgrade. I think this is one of the biggest things that has happened. Let's go around the table and I want to hear what you guys think. Is this a big deal? Maybe it isn't. Is this a turning point? So let's start with you, Jeff. I know you have some opinions about how the mainstream media has treated this, at least. Speak to what you'd like to say.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this earlier. I mean, there was a kind of a visceral reaction on both sides, whether you're a bear or a bull. And it is a big deal. He's really one of the first major analysts to talk about the future of Tesla. And this is one of those things that's actually going to move quite quickly. The way AI moves, it moves really quickly. And what you want to do as an analyst is you want to get, you want people to be prepared. You don't want to miss these things. They missed that NVIDIA move on the upside. They've missed a number of things recently, and I don't think they want to miss this one. So this is, generative real world AI. This is different than the text-based AI work that's going on with these large language models that's happening at multiple companies. And Tesla's really going to be on the forefront of that, whether it's a robot on wheels or a robot on legs. The market reaction, obviously the stock market received it quite well. Tesla's up and has been pretty well sustaining a 10% upside since that. And but I will tell you, there's bulls on the Tesla side that says, hey, everybody knew this was happening. This is nothing. And there's same thing on the bears side. And it's just not the case. I think this is the first time where people are actually starting to do the math on the cost structure of Dojo. And really, I think a lot of people didn't understand or didn't realize that Tesla does hardware both on the client side, the silicon on the car, and they do the silicon. Now they're doing the silicon on the network and server side. Of course, they're working with NVIDIA, who is a partner with them in the near term, but they've got a plan to do their own and receive their own silicon, even starting as early as this year and ramping that up over the next year to have, the greatest compute capacity in the world. And I think a lot of people, quite frankly, in summary, were caught off guard, both in terms of how they were positioned with the stock and how they were positioned with that information becoming public.
I know one person who was caught off guard. That's you, Christian. So come on, take a look at this, Christian. Take a look at this chart. All right. This is the 1 month of Tesla. Christian, take a look. Stop.
I see it.
Take a look, buddy.
I'm happy.
1 month ago.
You're not rubbing it in. You're not rubbing it in.
No. My point,
So
Christian, is...
I'll tell you what I thought about it.
I know. Just wait. Just wait. My point is that, it has gone up in the last month. Now you get the Adam Jonas report that could be significant enough that it's turning this tide in terms of the narrative for institutional investors and analysts. Is that what you're waiting for? Are you waiting for something like that? Or what else are you waiting for? Why are you sitting down on the sidelines?
So you have to talk about it accurately. I own the stock. I've owned it since 160. I don't own it 100% like some of you guys, but I own a nice position of it. I'm happy. So it's fine. I'm happy. I don't know what to say. Yeah, if my whole portfolio was in it, that'd be great. But that's not my strategy of what I'm doing. It's a position, a significant position, but it's just one position in a position of many.
Okay. And then your opinion about Adam Jonas report?
Yeah. So I thought Jonas was great in the sense of it makes Tesla a company other than a car company, right? We all know it, but guess, the reaction showed me that Wall Street's still not quite there. So, when we think, sometimes, I do think like, okay, is Wall Street, is this in the stock? And it's obviously not, right? Because when you get a 10% pop on a big market cap stock like Tesla, then it shows you it's not. So I think it just gives another theme that's not, delivery related, because, I think Q3 is not going to be a huge delivery for Tesla. It might not be a record, but the stock's still doing well. Now, that could be numerous reasons. We'll get into it, the UAW strike and things of that nature. But I think as time goes on and as we get closer to some of these things like a Tesla bot, if you see another Tesla bot demonstration, again, that AI just keeps getting played in people's heads, and they could say, well, maybe, cars are going to slow down a little bit, maybe not, but I still have these other things that I could own Tesla for, Dojo, down the road, Tesla bot, FSD, things of that nature. So I think it gives investors another thing to hang their hat on, rather than just being an automobile company and growth in cars.
Okay.
Not
Xander?
to mention the energy business. Yeah.
Regarding Jonas,
Yep.
My reaction was very excited. At the same time, the previous week we discussed growing your positions. I think it brings attention to the AI component of Tesla, and if analysts start modeling in AI, then it's going to change the tide.
Okay, and then you, Alexandra.
Mine will be a bit long because I was actually very surprised by a couple of things. First, how the market, or at least the big voices of the market, CNBC and some others, were quickly ready to dismiss this Jonas report. I mean, they felt so uncomfortable about this and made it very clear that it had to be dismissed, and they brought the strangest reasons for it, but there was always a good reason to not look at it in detail. And as of today, Thursday, right, it came out on Sunday night, they've still not invited Jonas on CNBC to discuss it, yet they had analysts of much lower standing than Jonas come on the channel and comment on it, yet they'd never really discussed it. Absolutely crazy, and shows you how crooked this market is. The second thing that I found surprising is this is a 66-page report that, I mean, we're handling out to our friends because, people ask us for it, but it's actually quite difficult to get. None of it really filtered into the press. There seems to be a common understanding to not make passages of it public. The third thing is, contrary to what lots of people tell us, there are loads of nuggets in there. And so my, investigative manner always wonders, where does he know all this? Did he go back to Tesla? Did he speak to investor relations? And did they give him more insights than we publicly have, which happens with analysts? I mean, usually analysts have a privileged access, but Tesla is not known for giving analysts privileged access. They may ask a question, they may get a response, but here it's much more. There's really a thought through business model. It's actually 6 thought through business models that are now coming together. And so I wonder, was it Tesla and the Morgan Stanley Jonas Group working together, or was Jonas, doing this by himself? And you have to know, Jonas is also the analyst for Ford. He has about 10 car makers in his portfolio. He only has 4 buy ratings. He has one for Ferrari. He has one for a battery factory. I can't remember the name. It starts with F, but whatever. And for Ford and for Tesla. On Ford, he has been on a buy rating for quite a while. He has reiterated it 3 weeks ago. So maybe some of the information he has in the report, mainly on selling EV powertrains to third parties and selling Dojo access to third parties and selling FSD and the whole operating system to third parties, didn't come because of his knowledge of Tesla, but came through the knowledge of talking to, for example, Ford. So that's the third part. The fourth part is the way this report was written. And I'm on the third time going through it. I'm still discovering paragraph by paragraph new stuff. And I mean, we're all spending so much time on Tesla. For us to be surprised is very rare, yet I am surprised. So please don't get fooled by people telling us we knew everything that's in there. By far, we did not. Who spoke before about EV powertrains sold to third parties? to the limit of, in a normal case, 1.7 million powertrains sold in 2030, or in his bull case, 3 million powertrains sold in 2030, meaning in 7 years, they would sell 50% more powertrains in one single year to third parties than they're selling cars this year. So there's so many nuggets in there. And again, it shouldn't be dismissed. It should be studied. And it takes quite some time if you want to go into the bitsies of this report. And yet the market did dismiss it. Yes, the move from 250 to 275 was thanks to that. There's no doubt that we made a 10% move thanks to the Jonas report, and it's not thanks to the Elon biography or whatever some rebellionaires are talking out there. But it is based on this report. But this report is actually so much more. His price target of $400 is very conservative compared to the words he says. On every other page, he says, okay, we're predicting this and this, but we're not including it in the price target yet. We're predicting this and this, but we're not putting it in. So if you would start putting all these nuggets in, we're not at $400. We're much closer to double that. So again, I encourage everybody to take the time to read this. And please don't let yourself be fooled that this is all out there and people know about it. It's not.
I have a theory, and that some people were saying that this Adam Jonas report was written right after the FSD live stream that Elon did. I don't think so. This is effort that was done about a month or two longer than just a couple weeks after the live stream. I think it probably happened after they saw the commitment to the supercomputers. So that when they shared the research or the announcement that they've now gone live with Dojo, and then they shared that they bought more H100s of NVIDIA, that I think then they came in, like you said, they probably talked to Tesla, really understand their commitment to Dojo. And can they really get to become the largest supercomputer by January and 20 times what they are today by the end of next year? That's probably what the catalyst was. Jeff, did you want to say anything more about either any comment you just heard Alexandra say or the mainstream media?
No, I mean, I think Alexandra hit all the key points. I'm just going to add that they were dismissive before any details were even looked at, and that's what kind of was very strange to me. And they were actually angry. It was like visceral, and again, it feels like there's other forces working, but who knows? You know, would be a conspiracy theorist, but it just the reaction was bizarre. And then for Morgan Stanley to come out with some, like, I guess Jonas wrote a page and a half a day ago or so, like almost like apologizing for his report, and then telling us everything that could be wrong with Tesla in the short term. I mean, I don't get that. We don't know. I mean, he may have been invited on CNBC and refused to come on. Maybe Morgan Stanley, maybe James Gorman said, hey, look how these guys talk. They basically accused us of being corrupt on Monday morning. That's what they said. They said that Morgan Stanley has clients that are connected to Tesla business, and read what you want into that. So it was kind of a really like super low blow by the media. And I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan Stanley is actually refusing to maybe even go on that network. Maybe we'll talk with other networks. But so we'll see how this plays out. We'll see if other analysts pick it up and start to run with it. Maybe connect some of their own analysis to it. I think Q3. Maybe we're going to talk about this later in the short term. I think this is starting to kind of get in everyone's head. There was a Deutsche Bank meeting last week with Tesla. Maybe we'll talk about this a bit later. But I think it's starting to get in people's head of like, hey, maybe some short-term noise, but the real signal is what Jonas talked about, and really some near-term things that could really spur demand, whether it's the UAW strike, whether it's building up for inventory for the following year when the IRA goes to point of sale.
And
Okay.
if I may add, Herbert, I'm sorry to jump on this another time. This gave me really political vibes. And I know, Herbert, you don't like we talk politics here, and I don't want to go there. But usually what you had on news channels was that they had one story and they ran with it, all had the same titles, all had the same keywords, all buzzwords and whatever. And you could see that certain stories were just manufactured the same way and thrown out multiple channels. The reaction the media had, both print but even more visual, be it Yahoo Finance, being CNBC, but whoever had a screen on Monday said the same things. You just had the feeling they were fed. And that's the first time I realized this happening for stock. I mean, I may be ignorant, it may have happened to other stocks before, but we should never forget Tesla is one of the most traded stocks in the world. There are lots of people who have a lot of interest, and there the stock was up 10%. So people who were short, people who had open market position over the weekend were caught on Monday morning. And you had this feeling, the first time I was sitting here in disbelief, how everything was concentrated, how everything was the same wording. And it really bothers me. It really, really bothers me.
Okay.
Yeah, it felt like a gamma squeeze,
Yeah.
which is, people having to cover.
All right, just to give context around this whole thing. So Adam Jonas report, he gave a price target of $400 up from $251. And so $400 by 12 months. And how he calculated that, he said, was, at $250, that was the old price target. Auto would just only be $7. But it's mostly because of two new supercomputer related kind of revenue streams that they're expecting. Mobility, which is like FSD, and potentially, I don't think they talk robotaxi, but just FSD. And then network services. This is the shocker that they actually, here's an institutional analyst saying that that they can see that Tesla will sell Dojo as a service to industries beyond autonomy, beyond cars. And actually to, industries like the airlines and healthcare and other industries. So, okay, so let's do a kind of a round table here. Who thinks that this report from Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas specifically, is this a narrative change? Is this a beginning of something, that's going to come? Or is it just one other analyst saying something and everybody will just go back to which is like, Tesla's not necessarily an AI company yet? What do you think, Alexandra?
Okay.
We'll go
Thank
down.
you. Yeah, it should be a profound moment. It should be really one of those watershed moments where you'd say, okay, retailers understood it, retailers studied it. I mean, Herbert, how many people have you interviewed from the different branches that are concerning Tesla, be it bots, be it powertrains, be it whatever? And here it came together finally in a report, in a 66-page report by one of the most respected Wall Street analysts, and yet they pulled his teeth immediately, right? So I can only tell everybody, read the report, keep it well, because it will need time to trigger through. Now, also don't confound what we hear on TV or on online streaming services. And what happens with institutional investors, I mean pension funds and long-term investors, is a different story. They can see through what's happening when Jim Cramer screams. So this may still be the watershed moment that I consider it should be, but may take a little bit of time. You remember what I told you all about those rating upgrades last year and how they would need time to really get into the long-term portfolios? The same thing can happen here. Again, it's 4 days old. I'm still not done with this report, and I'm reading it over and over and over again. So these other people will take time to digest it. So yes, it will become important. It should already be. And we can only hope that some other intelligent people pick it up and replicate the analysis and put their own numbers on it.
Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Alexandra. I'm going to put my realistic hat on again. I think it's a beginning, but I don't know if it's an actual game changer yet, because, if a lot of, let's talk about Jonas a minute. Like, the community loves Jonas when he puts out something good, but this is the same guy that had a $6 price target before all the splits back in the day, right? He had a range. It could be 6, it could be a 200, This guy's all over the map, right? And he likes writing these grandiose pieces. This one happened to be in our favor, so we loved it. But, I don't know that Jonas alone is the actual game changer. I think it's the beginning of the narrative change, just in general. And I think if Elon keeps talking about it, I think it'll slowly seep through. And him being at the AI in Congress yesterday is another little step of Elon being, and Tesla being an AI company. So I think it's a beginning, but again, earnings has to come through, right? Like, for my opinion, if this takes 2-3 years before we see Dojo actually show up in any revenue stream, or FSD show up, I don't know that this is going to carry it that long. I think at some point, whether it's 24 or at the latest 25, some of this has to start seeping to the bottom line. Otherwise, I don't know that the stock's going to run away if the earnings doesn't kind of follow through with something like some type of FSD, breakout showing how much revenue it's generating or what's the take rate. It's increasing. Look at the growth, how good it's getting. Something has to change. Otherwise, it's still, most of the revenues are coming from the car business. And if the margins are going to be flat because we're trying to get unit growth out, then, I don't see a huge earnings pop. So I don't know. I think it's a beginning, but I think I'm still being realistic that I think the stock might just kind of hang around here if we don't see any incremental improvement in some AI revenue.
Xander.
I do think it is, like Christian said, the start of a sentiment shift, and you have the conversation has begun. You're tying NVIDIA with Tesla, right? We're in the same ballpark, and now you're talking about like a technology company and not just a car company. So if Wall Street's starting to have the conversation and they're forward looking, you do need to have an earnings increase. So I think when that happens, and the margins stop declining, that's when you can have a big pop. But I don't give all the credit to the move on Monday to the Jonas upgrade. I think the talk from Elon in that article, or for the sneak peek of the book about Tesla's he wants to make it a $10 trillion company. I think that's that's a conversation that people had over the weekend. So if you're if you were comparing it to Saudi Aramco and Apple, and there's now this conversation that perhaps robotaxis are coming. Mexico, I don't remember the exact date when we got that information, but if it's not about Mexico and it's already happening in Austin, then the projection on like the forward PE right now is 80.75. And that's insanely high if you're going to just call it a car company. So I think if you're going to look forward and you can now model in revenue besides just auto, but then you're compounding it with what I just stated, I think that causes a sentiment shift, and then it's a new story. I think Christian likes to say it. We got to believe the story, and the next. I don't want to call it the next batch of suckers who believe the story, but that's what you need. You need people that get excited about investing in this company.
And then you, Jeff. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. I think it is the beginning of both sentiment and narrative change. So first off, in 2020, I think Jonas put out a report, and it was kind of the start of something back then. I'm not attributing everything to his report, but I think he's shining light on something. Let me connect a concept here. I think it'll make sense. I think this is my prediction, who knows, but I think in the next 3 to 6 months, there will be an announcement of one or more major partners with Tesla on FSD. And I think it's going to expand both the hardware in the vehicle, as well as utilizing Tesla's Dojo network, as well as the software that goes on both. And the reason is the following, and Elon has said this himself, and it doesn't matter if I agree with it, but it makes total sense to me, is that you're looking at probably 2.5 to 3 years of integration for them to design this, get it into their next design language and design model, the positioning of the cameras, any sensors, how the computer sits in the car, the liquid cooling, all those details, the routing to all the cameras, all those details. You need to partner with Tesla in kind of like a development kit format to do that work. You don't do that overnight, nor is it just some document or package you send over email, from Tesla to Ford or Tesla to Mercedes or whomever. This is kind of a deep partnership that needs to form, a procurement relationship and an engineering relationship. Tesla needs to set up an engineering product management on their side to interface with these other companies. And it's going to take a couple of years to do that. So that means I think the announcements are more imminent than people may think. And I think analysts are going to want to get ahead of this sooner than later. So when you say like, well, it's got to show up in EPS, and I agree with that. Fundamentally, I agree with that. But in 2021, they had like a 1,000 PE or something, and the thing was at its all-time high. I'm not advocating that. What I am saying, though, is if you look at where Tesla's at in terms of vehicle production, where they're at in terms of software maturity, in terms of AI maturity, and the fact that we're on the precipice of actually licensing this out, and it'll take a multi-year trajectory, I think within a year, they will have self-driving relatively working. And I don't think the other car makers aren't going to want to be 5 to 7 years behind that. If they start working with Tesla now, they can probably get out in their next vehicle generation or next cycle. So I think if you connect that together, the markets look ahead. They're not going to be waiting for it to hit EPS. They're going to be like, oh my God, they're going to be selling the guts and the software to all these major auto vendors, and the SaaS and the recurring revenue and royalties are going to be coming in off of that, and that's going to be a major driver for the stock, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
agree. Can I just follow up one thing? I agree with Jeff totally there. If you get that game changer, a licensing deal or something like that, yes, it's going to move. But so when they had the 1,000 PE, they had just turned profitable. So the market, when you're not earning anything and you just become profitable, the market has no clue. It's a story basically. So when that happened with Tesla, it was, oh my God, the growth of the cars is amazing. Look at the margins they're going to be. Oh my God, they're growing, 70, 80%. Oh, by the way, we got an energy business. Oh, by the way, the car's going to drive itself. Oh, by the way, all these things pile up and you get that excitement. Plus you got, when we had the stimulus in 2020 and everybody was home and they were trading and it was crazy with the options. So I agree with Jeff that, a deal like that will put it in a different light. I just don't know that you're going to see Tesla with a 200 PE anymore. Like, I think the earnings is going to have to be somewhere to support it. Otherwise, I just can't see it being like, okay, we're trading it like 200 times. I'm not saying Jeff is saying that. I think the earnings has to show that it's going to come through, or you can model it and you could actually say, this is what's happening, model that out over all the units, and then you can get some type of valuation. But I think if you're just saying, Dojo's going to hit, or, something like that, like what Jonas did, I think Jonas put out numbers, but, I don't really take Jonas's numbers. He does a lot of numbers. We need actually something concrete. And again, I'm just being a realist. I owned a stock. I wanted to go to the moon, but this is a conversation in reality. Elon, on one of the conference calls, talked about Dojo, and maybe someone could educate me, but he said Dojo could be like a real big hit, a big deal, or it could be a zero. So, that's Elon's word. So I don't know if something's changed and he's going to use it more because he can't get the NVIDIA chips, but Elon said himself that Dojo might not be a super big thing. So I don't know. How do we reconcile that? Is Dojo a definite winner, or is that like still a question mark?
At the same time, he's already announced that Dojo is in production. They've already showed you the graph for next year, just last month, where it's going to be 20 times the size. They already showed you that they bought and in production the H100 supercomputer as well. That adds it up to the other. So this is happening. It's on its way. We spent a lot of time on the Adam Jonas upgrade, and I wanted to move on, but I also have my own opinions. I think that in the December of last year, 2022, remember what happened last year? We were a car company. You could not get anybody to think and talk about us being an energy company, an AI company, a bot company. Then in the first quarter of 2023, we finally had the analysts talking about us as an energy company because there was a lot of concerted effort. There was a lot of news. Then the AI boom happened. And by the second quarter of this year, we needed to change the narrative so people start talking about Tesla as an AI company like they are with NVIDIA and others. It's now happening. So this Adam Jonas report is an example of an institutional analyst saying, hey, Tesla's an AI company. We're going to start hearing more and more of that. And that narrative change is very critical. I agree. Of course, earnings needs to follow, but always before the earnings follow, you need to have the narrative understanding what kind of company is this, and you need to start seeing real events that occurred that then earnings follow. So if you wait for the earnings to arrive, it's too late for you as an investor.
Absolutely.
You did not invest in time. So you need to invest before the earnings show up. And at some point, you got to say, you got to move on. So, okay, let's move on. I think that we spent a lot of time on that. Another big news that's coming, of course, is the UAW strike. We want to talk about actually good news here. The Gen 3 could actually be in production, or not production, but the production, the factory that's the build out for required for the next gen platform could already have started at Giga Texas. Of course, we need to talk about Cybertruck in the Q3, Q4. So the UAW strike by midnight tonight, it's possible that that they would vote that this was going to be the case. What do you guys think the possibilities of what might happen here? Why don't we start with you, Alexandra?
I expect. Shall I put this up here?
Yeah.
I expect they find a solution by midnight. Now, do I know that? Of course I don't. I mean, nobody has an answer, but they all have actually more to lose than to gain by going into the strike. I do believe that all three companies have the cash necessary or will be able to go to capital markets and gain the cash necessary to go to these increases. I think the last numbers on the table are 20% from the employers. They're still in the mid-30s by the unions. I do believe there's a big chance that they will agree on something in the middle of that. It sounds like huge numbers, but this is a plan over multiple years. And there is a big number to be caught up because inflation is what it is. So I'm usually no friend of, unions negotiating. I think actually, and you can see that with Tesla, employees have much more to gain in a healthy company where they are valued at their true value and where you don't have unions fighting for your rights. But this is old world. And in that old world, unions still have a saying. There was a lot of corruption in those unions. There were years and years without any pay adjustments. So something has to happen, and I do still believe they'll find a compromise. And by tomorrow morning, I may be proven wrong.
You will.
Okay, now what do you guys?
You will be wrong.
Yeah.
Jeff, I believe you said it. Isn't it in their best interest to burn off some of their inventory so they don't have that same pressure point? They have to get it done.
Yeah, I mean their inventories are growing both on the ICE and EV side. I'm sure again they don't want to idle. When you idle a factory, you still have the fixed costs there, so this is going to hit them and hit them hard. So it's not like they want that. I just think there's opposing forces happening here. I do think they're going to strike. I think this is more than just wages. There's multiple facets, and if you look at the total comp, it's actually pretty compelling. But I can see where with what's happened, basically with inflation, everything's about 18 to 20% more expensive than it was minimum than a couple of years ago. So I can see why they're asking for what they're asking for. But with the shorter work week and this kind of increase, and if you put all that together, the question is this some sort of short-term gain, and where does this actually position the U.S. auto industry? It doesn't look like it's putting it in good light. And then compared to Tesla, Tesla pays their employees in stock, and I believe in every analysis that's been done of late, if you look at total compensation, some of these articles online are not looking at it the right way. They're looking at like what's the hourly wage of a Tesla employee versus the hourly wage of a UAW employee. And you really got to look at total compensation over 3 years. And I believe, Tesla employees, and there may be some 3-year stretches where it's closer than others, but I believe they're making out just due to the stock-based compensation. So we'll see what happens here. In the end, what they're quoting is somewhere on the order, we don't have the exact numbers, but somewhere on the order of 5 to 8% of the cost to build these vehicles, it depends on the vehicle type, is in labor. So if they want to, if they want to hike it a certain percentage, you can start doing the math on what it does to the cost of making these cars. I think the other concern the UAW has to be careful about is membership. Because what this could force Ford, Stellantis, and GM to do, they all have Mexico plants. It could force them to move more of the production down there, and you're not gonna hear about that a year from now. It's just gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Every couple of weeks you'll see product lines moving, and you won't hear a lot. So I think the plan is for them tonight. They'll probably go on strike. They'll start at various strategic plants. It's not like everything shuts down at once, but remember, these car companies are not just final assembly plants. They have transmission and engine plants. They have part distribution plants, and I believe they're going to start there first. The rumors are that they would start there, like hit an engine transmission place, and if there's only a couple days of inventory of the final assembly factory that feeds, or factories that they feed, will go down.
Yeah. Herbert, I agree with what Jeff just said. I've been doing some research on this, and I saw an interview today with Farley. He said they haven't even come back with a counteroffer. He's never seen anything like this. They're negotiating with themselves, essentially. And I think they've already put out the plan. Like Jeff said, they've already announced kind of where they're going to go and what's going to get shut down. And it's all the big money, the Ford F-150s, all the money makers, those trucks, all those areas are going down. So I think the UAW is playing hardball. And I think this is why Tesla stock's actually being buoyed a little bit higher here, because if they're the only American car company that's going to actually, keep manufacturing cars at an output that's 100%, and these other things are going down, how does that look? It looks like Tesla's running away some more. It looks like Ford, if anything, like just think of it from a psychological level, they got to pay their employees more, right? Which in general, like Jeff said, if that's 10% of the car, that's going up a little bit more. It's incremental, but it's a narrative play, right? Tesla being more efficient. These car companies got to pay their people more. They got to negotiate with unions continually. It just keeps spinning that narrative that they cannot compete with Tesla on any level. So I think this is like a shot in the arm for Tesla stock. I think they're definitely going to strike. I'll go on the record. I might look like an idiot, but I think it's a done deal. I think they want to strike. I think the workers are
We'll
fed
talk
up.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. I respect Alexandra, but I think it's a done deal. I might look like an idiot. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Done. Yeah.
Christian and I are on the same team. It's a guarantee. There's going to be a strike. It doesn't happen, Alexandra. When the union strikes, they will strike, and they're just going to go. They're going to wait till they.
And you expect a long strike? You expect weeks of strikes?
Yes. Until they get their. So I think what you said, though, makes sense, which is I think what you positioned it is that the automakers have more to lose. And so they're going to buckle. Is that what you said, right? So that part, I get that. So that part, it depends on them. But I think that usually it does go on. It doesn't just end magically. I mean, we'll see. Like you said, we'll see. But
and let's have some historical perspective. Maybe Jeff knows. Is it the UAW? All three might go. Ford, GM, Stellantis. Mm-hmm. Has that ever happened before, where all three are striking at the same time?
I looked this up before. I don't remember, but if it has, it's been a number of decades. I think the biggest strike was either a Ford or GM strike a number of decades ago. But they have gone on strike, and even in the last, I think, 10 to 15 years. But they've been on kind of smaller scale. But the inventory piece is going to be interesting, because if I can just go a minute on this really quick, a lot of people really don't understand the inventory space. First off, when you hear about inventory at traditional auto, that is what's in their dealer network. They all target about 60 days or 8 weeks. And Ford GM's been inching up over the last couple of quarters ever so slightly. And even the monthly data isn't looking so good either, but it's not like it's out of control high. It's just like things are starting to inch up. And what people really don't understand is the Tesla inventory. The Tesla inventory, when people see 16 days, and there was a Deutsche Bank report on this that they kind of went back and forth on management. And if you've run a factory, you understand this stuff. The light clicks on pretty quickly and I'll explain it. They're saying that, I think everybody's looking at this current quarter for Tesla on an inventory and saying, wow, they have all these cars in inventory leaving Q2. Shouldn't have any problem. Shut the factories down, do the upgrades, ship all out of the inventory, and it should be great. And what we come to find is that 15 or 16 days leaving Q2, what Tesla is saying is about half. We don't know this number too on the outside until Tesla says it. About half of that is in transit, which means they're really like in stock. They're probably at a week or less physically in stock. That's nothing from a Tesla perspective. That's really nothing. So when you see all this stuff on Twitter of like highest, I know I'm going a little bit off track, but I think it's important. Highest inventory ever. Oh my God, highest this, highest that. That has no context. You really need to understand what it means in relative to the rate of what they're shipping, relative to the sellout rate of what they're doing. If Tesla went on strike for whatever reason, they're not organized, but they would be in a world of hurt. You would start stocking out within a week. But I think from a UAW perspective, they've got about 8 weeks of inventory. It's different by different vehicles. Some have many more weeks of inventory. But from a Tesla perspective, I was surprised to hear that over half of that 15 or 16 days is in transit. That means Tesla actually needs to build up more inventory. So I think, to me, that means we're going to talk about this maybe later, but I think their Q4 is going to be record production.
Okay. So, Alexandra, are you willing to take the bet with me? Tonight, there is a strike. Based on what Jeff just said, they have inventory. They're not going to go and buckle tonight. They might buckle in a week.
I mean, I see the inventory argument. And it may actually give them some oxygen, right? By going on strike, then they have a good excuse and whatever. But honestly, stopping everything, then negotiating when everything is stopped, you're in a much weaker position then as the employer. Then finally coming to a compromise and then relaunching everything. I mean, that comes at a cost, and it comes also at a cost in terms of morale and motivation. Employees don't feel as valued if it had to go through a long strike and everything. I mean, I'm probably too European and I've gone through too many strikes in France. That's no doubt about it. But I mean, it doesn't smell to me as if they really decided to make this stop here. But I may be wrong. And so, yes, let's take the bet.
Okay. So if the loser has to subscribe to Earl of Frunk Puppy for 6 months. 3 months.
Bet with
I can't handle 6 months. 3 months?
3 months. Let's do 3 months.
You're kidding me. You're going to take this bet? You're crazy.
I will, of course. I'm subscribed to him now.
She loves Earl anyway. She'll subscribe. She's always commenting under him.
He is like my ex-husband. He's the worst.
Yeah, you don't care.
Whoa.
Anyway,
okay,
let me
move
throw
on.
out a little conspiracy theory, and anyone could comment. I'll go fast. Do you think this is a strong arm play by the workers in the union to say, look, you want to do this EV transition? You're going to probably, move some people out. They're going to lose their job because maybe you need less people to do all this. Do you think this is why they're making their stand and they're not even negotiating? Because they want to push maybe the Biden administration, or maybe push. They're already talking about getting money to do something to help with their supply chains while this is going on. Could this be a strong arm play by the union to say, hey, hold up with all this electric vehicles and this and that? We're the real deal. Without us, you got nothing. And they're going to push hard, and they're going to push on Biden hard to get what they want for the next 5 to 10 years and not really worry about the next 20. I think this is the moment they're doing it.
Not on Biden in person. I think that's long gone.
No, behind the scenes though.
But behind the scenes,
that's exactly what they said.
I actually think the administration is already there in Detroit negotiating with them. I mean, we've seen. What was it, Jeff? $9 billion to Ford last week. What was the exact?
A couple months ago. Last week was 15.
That was the bigger.
No,
that was a bigger one.
A couple months ago was $9 billion to Ford. That was already done deal many months ago. What you were talking about a couple of weeks ago was the $15.5 billion additional. Again, $2 billion grant, 11. So this is going to, and it actually specifically outlined. It actually said union. To support the union workers. It actually
this is your tax money and mine. Can you imagine? I mean, I know they're supposed to pay it back, but we all know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, these are this is the bailout that's happening.
So this is what's making it so complex. First off, just to be clear, I don't think they want to go on strike because they've got inventory, they want to burn it off. The cash, the fixed costs that they're going to lose by shuttering factories it's going to crush them. By the way, this is the last 3 calendar weeks of a quarter is the worst time for them to go on strike. Is when they push out a ton of vehicles. So this is really bad for the automakers too. But there is complexity to Christian's point on the battery factories. These battery factories are going to have a significant number of people. And right now, there's only one of them that is voted to be unionized. There's no deal on the table. There's over a dozen, I think, in production, or sorry, factories that are under construction for production. And there's no deals on the table because these are all joint ventures with Chinese and Korean companies they really don't want any part of union labor. So there's this big disparity that would grow. Like if they agreed to this deal with the UAW, and then you have these battery factories, which are kind of like, think of these engine and transmission plants. They want to keep all the workers on a similar level from a pay perspective. So as they're moving labor back and forth to deal with issues, they don't have these major disconnects. Now you can have these battery factories that are actually making much lower than the total comp on the union side. And so that's going to create an issue. The other thing is there's less components in an EV, and these legacy companies haven't figured out how to vertically integrate. So they're still farming out a lot of the work. So less components, farming out the work. There's going to be less work to do on the general assembly side in the factory. And that's what was said. These unions have to be worried about membership numbers and not just this being a race to the bottom. So between moving work to Mexico and just less work with EV, yes, I think they are pushing back on the EV transition, which is coming, from this current administration, but it was actually voted bipartisan, in the House and Senate. So this is how this all plays out is going to be really interesting, but it really hurts them on the economics to build a vehicle, whether it's ICE or EV. It really hurts them on EV.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's talk about good news. So for many weeks now, we were concerned about Giga Mexico. It was supposed to go online by June. It's now September. We hadn't heard anything. About a week ago, we heard that they were still working on permits. Now, Walter Isaacson's book came out, and one of the excerpts he shared was that actually turned out that in May, Elon had already decided that he's going to move the next gen platform to start building it in Giga Texas. So it could have been that May he already started to feel like there was a political play by the Mexico government with the permits or whatever it was, and so he said, but then his reasoning was he wants the employees to be near, and so it's possible that since May they've already started work on this next gen platform. What do you guys think? I mean, this is very good news. I think if this is probably the best news that we could have had at this point. Who wants to comment on that?
I wouldn't mind starting because it actually sustains my point from last week where I said I really don't understand why we're looking for so many other locations rather than building out Austin to its full size, Berlin to its full size, Shanghai to its full size. I remember, and Xander was with me when we had the shareholder meeting in May and could do this tour of the factory. It was a very limited tour to not even 5% of the manufacturing plant. It was tented off, so we couldn't see much on the right and on the left. It was the end of the Y production line. And I was actually with Joe Techmeyer when I was doing the tour, and he said to me, because he's doing the videos, and he always has a lot of insight and a lot of people talking to him, that on the right, they're building something. And I said, yeah, I guess the Cybertruck. And he said, well, I guess it's something else. And I didn't realize then what he was talking about. So obviously that was in May. They were already getting it ready for the Gen 3. And the other point that helps me is that it seems to be mainly in the same materials than the Cybertruck. So it does make sense given that they are now optimizing Cybertruck precision. I mean, Jeff is going to tell us much more on how precise they can be and how long it will take for models to be as precise as Elon hopes to. But if they're optimizing that in Austin, it is obviously perfect to then apply it directly to the robotaxi, which is going to go out in so many more millions than anything else, and have that as the mothership factory set up before putting it into production also at other locations. I still believe Mexico is going to be a location for loads and loads of millions of cars. I just think it makes more sense to have the initial phase in Austin, where the best crews are already working on the best cars, and then now multiplying it to the next car.
Yeah,
I was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick. I think you and Brian had a great discussion on this, Herbert, where Brian, who's a very smart guy, I think Brian White is his last name, he said it didn't make any sense because why would you have announced Mexico, talked about and then switched it? What's the whole, like, if we can do it in Austin and there's so much room there, why was Mexico such a big deal and talked about it? It doesn't jive. And I think it is, I agree with what Brian was kind of saying. I don't know if you agree with him or not, that it doesn't make a lot of sense other than something must have happened and then they kind of changed it, but it couldn't have been the plan all along because that was what Mexico was for. And so, I mean, am I wrong on that? I don't know what you think, Jeff. I mean, It seems like it's a little haphazard.
No. So clearly that wasn't the plan all along. They wanted Mexico, but pretty quickly Elon changed. By the way, both Brian White and Larry Goldberg said the opposite of what you just said. They actually were saying that they should quit Mexico. Larry Goldberg called it, so did Brian White 2 weeks ago, before the excerpt came out from Isaacson. They were saying, if these guys want to play hard, it's taken this long, Elon could easily choose another factory out there or expand in their own factory. And they called
which gives me hope for France, because that's exactly what's going to happen there. That's
right. And so what happened?
Don't play with Elon.
Elon said, "Okay, you guys want a deal? We'll announce it." They do, and then there's a pushback on how long the politicians were responding. And he said, "Screw this, I gotta go," and he's just switched it. Now this is good news because now all the other factories, they're put on alert, going, "You better act, or we can easily pull from you." I think it's fantastic news. And so then this came out in the book excerpt of Walter Isaacson's biography of Elon. And I don't understand why they would release this if this was really it. But here's Franz, the designer, standing in front of a mock-up of a potential Model 3. It looks awesome, but this is what it looks like. So what do you guys think? I mean, is this real? Is this going to be it?
Well, just one quick thing on the factory side. When you're doing significant innovation, you really want your engineering teams to be on top of the factory. And for decades, there's been this whole thing of, like, especially in the smartphone world, of like, I was a big believer in local prototyping and getting the product to design completion co-located with engineering. That's what I built. I built factories right here in the United States to do that. But other companies believe that you put people in aluminum tubes for 13 hours, send them to China, everything will be okay. When you're doing incremental innovation, if you take this rectangular slab and you're just doing minor things year on year, that may work. But what Tesla is doing with, whether it's Cybertruck or whether it's this Gen 3 vehicle, they're changing the entire approach to how a vehicle is produced. And you don't really want to, even though Mexico is pretty close, and yep, it's not expensive to get people to and from, you're still wasting people's time in transit to get to issues and see problems versus just having it co-located as close as possible. So what Tesla's focused on is, how do you get that output per square meter down in the factory? And if you saw that announcement, what I tweeted this morning about what they're potentially trying to do on the gigacasting side, I believe one of the progressions that they may be doing is trying to basically close that die and do the front and back castings together, or do potentially get to one casted part. Either way, you're going to take the physical square foot or square output per square meter in the factory for gigacastings. You're going to double it if this innovation works, whether it's the dual castings at the same time or the single casting. So this is the type of things that Tesla is working on. And they want to do that in a co-located manner. And when those innovations hit, they have more room in the factory. All of a sudden, a 500K per year factory becomes a 1 million unit factory. A million
Sorry,
unit factory becomes 1.5 million.
So this is another weird thing, but I'm going to agree with Christian again. And somehow I'm going to disagree with you, Jeff. I'm going to put myself out there. Who would ever disagree with rational, well-spoken Jeff, who coins terms left, right, and center? But Jeff, dude, Elon went and announced, they had a big party. They announced the Giga Mexico. They talked about Giga Mexico. They said that they were going to do it there. So this, obviously, it's very logical. Why would you not want to be your employees and your designers and your engineers right on the same factory floor? But they announced it. So it's not like they, you know what I mean? Like, yes, that's true, but they had already planned.
They announced that they're building a factory. They may still build a factory. So what?
No, I know they're going to build the factory, but they announced that they were going to do the next gen platform. In what they said,
and they may do the next gen platform there.
Right.
But they might start the design.
Jeff could be right. Look.
No, of course you're right, Jeff. I'm just saying
we
that
like to spin everything. Yeah. If it's negative, it turns into a positive. It doesn't matter. Obviously, I agree with Herbert here, and I agree with Jeff. He's saying everything right, but I'm saying there's something that doesn't add up. You wouldn't have announced Giga Mexico and then not going to get any production from it for like 2 to 3 years and maybe not build it for it doesn't make any sense.
I can give you the answer, which is Tesla is overanalyzed. This stuff happens at companies all the time. We make different decisions. But we don't, everything doesn't go out, and there's just literally, it's not even a 24/7 cycle. It's like every minute there's news going back and forth. I'm just telling you that these changes happen all the time. You're right. There's a reason. Maybe there's something else behind it, but I'm just telling you that these types of changes, site changes of where you're going to build product, they happen all the time.
Yeah.
And also,
the only thing I would say, though, that was just to push back a little bit. They announced China went up. They announced Texas went. Berlin, Mexico, which was supposed to be their MO is when we announce a factory, we get on it. So something I think is a little bit missing here. It could be politics. It could be Elon misreading the situation. But I'm sure Elon and the Tesla team would have said, we're not going to announce Mexico, and we got this locked down that they're on board, the government's on board, we can get this rolling. That was the story when we first heard it. So we can spin it any way we want, but I do think that this something is missing that we don't know right now.
I think the thing we're all missing, but I mean, I don't understand how we can, is they're tripling Berlin. They're extending Austin. So people always want new locations. I don't get it. I mean, if you triple Berlin, it's as if you've added 2 other locations in Europe. If you're extending Austin, it's as if you've put more into North America. So just because it's the same name of the city and you're actually increasing efficiency by having it at the same place, because that's where you have your suppliers. So if at the same time the battery suppliers have adjusted, the subsidies have also now been taken into account. Remember when they announced, or when they last year, or a little bit more than a year ago, announced that they want to do so many different gigafactories, we then had all these new laws about subsidies in America and in other zones about where batteries have to be manufactured to be eligible and whatever. That could drive the last minute decision to finally make an extension rather than a new setup. I'm not worried about the fact that they don't announce immediately, building plans or whatever. And the other thing that is, I do believe it's really good politics. Elon is keeping them on their toes, and there's so much more to come. There will be battery factories in Europe, in Asia, whatever. India is hoping, Indonesia is still hoping. He's keeping them all on their toes. It's just all good.
Yeah, I wouldn't award them product or business size until the permits are complete, the pricing's understood. I mean, this is a Monday morning quarterback. This is stuff I've been through before. So I'm surprised that they're like, oh, we're going to build this there and we're going to build that there. And we're going to do and there's no permits. There's nothing, agreed to. So I don't know. We don't know what happened. But I think that I think they really need to get some information in hand before they decide what they're doing there. But I believe they will set up there, and I believe they'll have a significant, they'll have a huge presence there. Just a matter of when.
Yeah. And I would strongly recommend to the Mexican local governments there to shut up as quickly as possible. More you talk, longer it will take, less likely it is it will happen.
Mm-hmm. And then there's already 21 to 30 vendors that have already, announced big dollars investment. So it's not easy to just turn that around. Okay.
Isn't it possible that they just change direction and that they're going to start in, so that way you don't need to move the designers, you don't need to move the production build out, and then once that's done, you ship in a couple of people to launch it, and then off to the races, right?
Yeah, there's launch factories and transfer factories, so they'll I think they're going to build Gen 3 everywhere.
Did you write that down? Launch factories and transfer factories.
I'm writing down all of
the all
of the terms that Jeff coins. I'm
not saying these aren't Tesla terms. They may have a different term.
I know. I mean, because Jeff gets paid the big bucks to consult, and he comes up with these coin terms. And so when I get the list, I'm going to get the big bucks because I just repeat what he says, and I'm good to go, right?
I don't know about that, Herbert.
It's not how it works.
Okay. We'll see. We'll put you in front of someone and see how it goes.
Why don't you go and shock us with your knowledge about how incredible or what's happening with the economy? Teach me about PPI, CPI, auto loan default rate. Go, Jeff.
I think Christian should start.
All right.
Well, either one. Well, I'll go real quick, and then Jeff could. So CPI, PPI just hit. They were actually a little hotter than normal, right? But core, which is more the core inflation, so that's kind of excluding energy and food, was kind of in line. So the market looked at it, I think, and that's why you've seen the market kind of not really react to the negative side, because it's kind of what they expected, and it's kind of trending the way they want it to go. It looked, I think oil's around $90. So a lot of that increase is because of the energy costs. So I think overall the market took it well. I think we got a retail sales number that was strong. So the consumer, I don't know how they're doing it with the interest rates higher, rents through the roof, mortgages costing much more, financing cars costing much more, food. You go to the grocery store, I go, that costs a lot much more. But it seems that the consumer is just so resilient. Now that could be ending soon. Again, I don't want to be a damper, but student loans is starting up, I believe, in the beginning of October. That could be a couple $100 for millions of people. Interest rates does work with a lag. We all know this, but maybe they haven't hit fully. So I think the consumer in Q4, they're looking for GDP to weaken from a strong Q3. We'll see how it goes, but I think the macro's fine. I think the Fed's getting what they want. They want to get a slowdown in the consumer. But man, it's tough sledding because the retail's still spending. People are still spending, and I think travel is still looking good. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I love we're here with Jeff. I'm so confused as to why the consumer's so strong when the Fed is just going on a ridiculous hiking spree. The only thing I could say, and I'll end it on this, is that there was so much excess savings built up from when they just spread the child tax credits. They gave every child, how many dollars if you had a lot of children, and all the money and zero interest rates and all the liquidity that was out there is finally starting to come off, but it's still not completely come off. I think in Q4, it'll pretty much be spent. So I think the test will be Q4. If we have a weak Christmas, a weak shopping season, I think people will start saying, okay, maybe the consumer's slowing down and the Fed could stop with these rate hikes. But if we get a strong Q4, I think the Fed still might be looking, to raise another quarter point. We'll see. What do you think, Jeff?
I think, the PPI came out this morning. What the Fed looks at is the core. So they strip out food and energy, because raising rates doesn't change the price of oil, doesn't change how much eggs cost. There should be people working on what oil cost and what eggs cost. And they should be, in the government doing that work and sorting through root causes and putting in, corrective actions to try to, it's difficult. It's not easy to do, but I don't think we hear enough about what are the root causes and then how do we actually get this under control? And then but if you strip out food and energy, I think core is getting closer to like 4.2, and it was on plan. Sorry, 1 second here. I'm just dealing with a call. So I would say a little bit hot on PPI, but again, I don't think it's going to cause the Fed to move, because then they can't do anything about food and energy. So in terms of what this means, in terms of the consumer is strong, is because all this money has been spread out. There's still money being spread around. Even as Alexandra talked about, this $15.5 billion program that was just announced for auto, there's $2 billion of it that's a grant. That's money that doesn't have to be paid back. And it's specifically for labor, collective bargaining, and labor. So that's $2 billion that's going to be spread amongst, call it 150,000 UAW employees or more. It could be used in other areas. So there's still money being spread around. That's why the consumer is very strong. I think the student loans coming up in October, I think that is going to have somewhat of an impact. But seasonally, I think Q4 is pretty strong. And the other reason that retail sales are strong is because inflation's still high. So when you're paying more for goods, that the actual sales in dollars is still high. So there may be a little bit of an effect here that could be happening, which is goods cost a little bit more. That means actually earnings are going to be kind of good. Earnings aren't good when PPI is cratering, CPI is really going down at a fast rate, and inflation's low. It's actually not good for earnings. So we may have a little bit of a weird thing happening where we may have seen a trough in earnings, and future earnings are going to be good, and that's going to pull the market up and forward. I don't know. We'll see. There's another thing that says that basically it takes 1 to 2 years for the effects of rate hikes to actually filter through, and for the average consumer to see it. So, I think time will tell. If we do get a recession, I don't think it will be deep. And like I said, if we did have an earnings trough, I think I think a lot of these companies trimmed up, they got more efficient throughout this year, kind of a year of efficiency. 2024, may be in better shape. So I don't think the Fed's going to move this month, in summary, but they could do something in the future if this starts to get out of control again at the core level, not at the headline level.
Okay. Well, what came out, PPI, CPI, was exactly what we were hoping for. Come on. At the end of the day, the story is good.
It wasn't,
yes,
Herbert. It was a little hot. It wasn't exactly what we were hoping for. We wanted it to be lower.
It was tiny. What they're still saying is that the Fed is still actually going to pause. In fact, it's more likely the Fed will pause instead of raise the 25.
True.
That's what changed.
But in November, I think a quarter point might be baking.
No, what they're saying is that what people are saying now is that in November, it's going to be a pause, not a raise, not a quarter point, which has been the
pause. They're meeting next week. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying okay, the next one. All right.
Right. They're not going to go this month. They may surprise us, but I think the thinking is they're going to pause here, wait for some more data, and then if they have to go in November, they'll do it. But I'm not saying they will. Yeah.
There's the AI boom. It's like I'm not trying to be optimistic or anything. I'm just trying to say this is we're trying to spin things when it's like actually it's actually what we.
I'm invested in big tech. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm in the Googles of the world. I'm in the Amazons. I'm in the Teslas, because they got the scale. They got all the money. They don't need to issue. They don't need debt. They got so much cash flow and so much money on their balance sheets. They could just fund their growth. And like Jeff said, they got lean and mean. They got Google laid off more people. Meta laid off people. Not that I'm invested in Meta, but Amazon is they're really doing well. I think they're tightening up their ship, and Jeff knows about their supply chains, and Tesla, of course. I think that's where you want to be. Like, if you want a safety net, you want to be in big tech. Yeah.
Heard a new name for Christian, Amazon.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That's good.
I've been buying them up.
So let's talk about Elon's biography. It's a big deal. I mean, it was a fantastic book. I've been reading it. I'm still not finished yet. Curious to see what you guys think. If any tidbits there, that was really an important thing that you heard that you hadn't learned before. Who's read it?
I have one point. I'm not ready at all because I haven't read a lot about it, but I've assisted to a discussion other people had and found that very interesting. It was about the fact that in the book, Isaacson makes a point about Elon hyping AI Day because he then wanted to sell his shares. I mean, he obviously knew he had to sell shares for the Twitter purchase. What I don't like about this style of books is, and it's actually in 3 steps, what I want to say, is Walter Isaacson's writing in a very cohesive way that you want to read. The chapters are not too long. It is well explained. But you never know who was his source for what. So you have direct interaction, obviously, with Elon. Elon allowed him access to assist to a lot of meetings. They sometimes even walk the factory floor together. But he was also talking to ex-life partners, mothers of his children, his parents, brother, sister, whatever. He talked to a lot of people. So sometimes you don't know what's the source for which information. And if this information came directly from Elon, I would not be happy, right? I mean, it could come from anybody, and it could be a nothing burger, as it could be something that would make me feel uneasy. So that's a little bit the issue I have with this type of book. You don't know who the source is, you don't know how credible it is, and there comes a certain criticism of Elon, because it's all nice and fine that you invite a biographer of the caliber of Walter Isaacson into your life, multiple years, lots of exchanges that got very personal, and then you allow this person to first, chapter by chapter, give this to certain newspapers, which is part of the promotion of the book, and then the book is out. And we've seen it with the chapter on Starlink and Crimea. We're seeing it now with this latest little detail. It just hasn't been vetted. So Elon trusted him and didn't ask him to have a last right of reading and annotating it before it was going out, which brings with it these moments, right? And they're quite unpleasant for a Tesla investor. It doesn't matter, like I always say, this too shall pass. It will be amplified by the press, but we have to live with that. And I just wish that in these moments, Elon's lawyers, I'm sure, told him, don't give him just, all rights, make sure you have a last right to edit. We're not heard. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading the book on Audible. I'm listening to it. It's fascinating. Anything Elon related, interviews, his book with Ashley Vance was great. This one's also great. The first half, if you're a Tesla junkie and Elon Musk junkie, we kind of known it, even though they do sprinkle in some things specifically about the father doing certain things that I never heard of. That's interesting. But as you get to the middle, and I'm kind of there, you're starting to get even more of the newer stuff. And I think it's intriguing. I agree with Alexandra. I think Walter Isaacson did a wonderful job. It's very entertaining. You get into the mind of Elon. You get into the mind of what this man's been through. And, it's just a great story. Forget like the company, just like his life in general with his, relationships. Yeah, it's a bit of a gossip thing, but it's fascinating to see how this man, through all this chaos, was able to do everything he's managed to do so far. So I'm loving it. I'm only halfway done, and I think it's a great book. And I recommend anyone out there, if you're interested in one of the greatest entrepreneur of our lifetime, you got to pick it up and listen to it or read it, because it's quite enjoyable and it's a great listen.
Yeah, I don't think he's he really has anything to hide. I think the book shows that he's human, and the media's painted him out to be a bad guy, right? Bad billionaire. And he sold off his houses, and he's being attacked for not paying taxes when he paid the biggest amount of taxes. So I just think that media will always, especially, they love to build you up and then tear you down. That underdog story is something that plays out in our culture. But I just think getting a sneak peek into his psyche, and understanding that, like, he's relentless and he's actually doing good for humanity, I think that's actually good for the general public who might only see headlines. So I'm actually hoping that people are kind when they read it and look at the good sides of the person and the man, and not just cherry picking the his quote demons.
Yeah, I think he's first of all, Walter Isaacson is an amazing writer, and he did his job. He went and interviewed everybody that you needed to interview. I think that Elon gave him the access, gave him the transparency, because that's who he is, and I appreciate that very much. Right, that is on brand that he did that, and it has warts and all, so it's okay. We know that the mainstream media has a lot of ammunition that they're going to use anyways, and yes, this gave them a little bit more. They're going to go and drag out some of these stories. Absolutely true. But at the end of the day, I still am very appreciative that this is a true kind of a both sides approach versus it being cleaned up a little bit. When he made mistakes like facts, like the Crimea Starlink situation, that was a factual infactual mistake of his misunderstanding. That's a bad one on him. And I'm sure he did a couple more, I think, in the way that he interpreted maybe some of the comments people make, that engineers make, and he not being an engineer. But the rest of it, it's true. What his ex-wives have said and his family have said, he presented it properly. And you can actually, because of that, you can now tell the kind of the, like you said, the psyche of Elon. He is a drama magnet. He himself has said this. He has moods, both positive and, demon mode and joyful mode and those kind of things. And it's part and parcel of our investment in Tesla. But at the end of the day, he has won. He's always won his bets, and he keeps betting again and bets it all, goes all in, and he wins. And so that's what we're doing. And he's brilliant, right? The one thing you can't take away from the guy is that when he decides to do something, sweating blood and tears, he goes in, literally sweat, blood, and tears. There's no one else that can work harder than him with his brain, with his time, with his ability to bring the smartest minds together. That's why he succeeds. And so anyways, great book. Loving it. I really liked it a lot. So, okay. Anybody
and for
else?
the record, I also have a demon mode. I have a demon mode.
Oh, we've seen it.
Every Thursday afternoon.
No, it's every 30 days or so.
Oh.
It's we kind of sometimes make fun of, like, which of our five here has the biggest ego?
Xander.
I don't know. Like, we all compete with each other. It's funny. And Jeff, everybody goes, "Oh no, Jeff is such a..." No, he's not, guys. I'm telling you.
He is the nicest guy out there.
He's a nice guy, but he's got a big ego.
Scholar and a gentleman.
He does
I coined
not.
that phrase. Scholar and a gentleman.
I does not. Oh no.
Maybe we'll let the viewers put comments in for who they.
I will lose.
Please,
I've lost.
Please.
That's why.
And say who is your preferred CyberBull, please.
No.
Yeah. Make another poll.
We've already done that.
This is why I'm saying this is frustrating, because I know every one of you on the outside of the CyberBulls. I'm like trying to tell you. I'm the rational one. I'm the nice guy with a big ego. Okay,
sure
that's fun. Okay, so Mark Zuckerberg and Elon were at the AI Senate meeting.
Summit.
What do you guys think about
AI
that? The summit? Was it called a summit? I think I called it a meeting because I don't know what it's called. I mean, I guess it's an AI summit. Yeah. What do you guys think? Is this a big deal? I mean, Elon was very respectful. He thought that it did matter.
He was in a jolly good mood.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a big deal. Elon said it might have been one of the most important meetings of humanity. So of course it was important. The trajectory of AI could have been, the beginning right there. What do you say, Jeff?
There should be a song that goes with that, Christian.
Yeah, you love that song.
That's one of my favorite.
No,
I think we should make this very clear so that everybody knows Christian sings very well. And we want to make absolutely sure that this goes public soon.
Yes.
I'll sing one day for the show.
So,
do it.
We'll do a special episode of
singing.
No, but in all seriousness, I thought it was, I love, speaking of Elon drama, I mean, he's been talking about fighting Mark Zuckerberg. We got Elon Musk next to Alex Karp, who's another kind of one of those kind of crazy geniuses, right, with the hair from Palantir, sitting together having fun. You got Mark Zuckerberg looking, very solemn. You got Bill Gates in there, right? Another Elon, kind of a little bit of a back and forth. So fascinating drama, right? I was hoping that we could actually watch it on television, but it was closed. So we just got some comments when Elon came out. That would have been fascinating to be in there. And I don't know why they didn't televise it. I thought it would have been riveting TV. But I thought it was great. Jeff, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think there's going to be information in there they probably didn't want publicized in the hands of the. But I agree with you; it would have been fascinating if it was televised. I think it's going to be something in a multi-part series where they eventually get this to where some legislation can be crafted, and then maybe some trusted people from each of their teams can work with these legislators to get something on the books related to AI safety, so that you don't slow down progress, but you've got guardrails for everyone to operate in. So I think that's what everyone's looking for, and I hope they get there very soon.
All right.
Yeah.
So even if I put on your glasses, Jeff, nothing will make me it's a branding that I can become more rational. I can't do that.
I get a lot of comments about glasses. I don't know. I will give you a fun fact. These glasses were designed next to the factory in Brandenburg in Berlin. They actually designed in Brandenburg.
You got German glasses because of your German friend? Is that it?
And they were fabbed in Italy.
There you go.
Well, you know what they say about German manufacturing. You can't get better.
That was a good time ago.
Came around.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. That was fun. Thank you for joining us at CyberBulls. And follow everybody here. There's Alexander Mertz, Tesla Boomer Mama. You got Jeff Lutz at the Jeff Lutz on X, and C Valente 28, and R6 Alex. One day we'll get him to explain why he called himself R6 Alex, but that's who he is on
and
X.
Look at his nice studio. Isn't it so cute?
We're getting there. We're getting there. We got a real camera now.
All right.
We do.
See you guys.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.